Go.
Good evening. It's Friday, April 25th, 2025, and we're in Studio 6A today. And it's my pleasure and true honor to speaking with a World War II combat hero, Mr. John J. Jeckovich. How are you doing today, Mr.
Very
Jeckovich?
good, very good.
You're looking well. I like your new automobile shirt.
Yeah,
That's pretty fancy.
that was for the party this afternoon.
Yeah, that's pretty fancy. You're ready to go to a car auction.
Yeah.
That looks very nice on you. Very nice. Mr. Jeckovich was a teenager during World War II. He was from Company H, the 2nd Battalion of the 291st Regiment of the 75th Infantry Division during World War II. Mr. Jeckovich lives by the motto, yesterday is history, today is a mystery, and yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today's a gift, right?
All right.
Today is a gift. Wow. So did you have a nice dinner today?
Oh, yeah.
That's good. We're reading Mr. Jeckovich's book titled Their Mother's Sons, the second time around. How many pages is that?
849.
Yeah, I wonder why it's taking me so long. Second time around, we're on chapter 5, where we met a very nice lady named Ann Mahaney, or girl I should say, while I was at boot camp in Evansville, Indiana, and she lives in Owensboro, Kentucky, which is just a stone's throw away. And he just recently met her mother, and she turned out to be a very nice lady. And so this part of the chapter, he just left there, and now he's back to boot camp, and he's got to go another couple weeks from boot camp before he can get another weekend pass, right?
Right.
Before I start reading, Mr. Jeckovich, I'll need your dog tag number.
42965.
Okay, that'll open up the laptop to start reading the book. And let's see where we're at. Chapter 5, and this is Getting to Know You, that's Ann Mahaney, and we're on page 99. So we got back from one of his visits, and now he is back at boot camp, and he's training and hoping to get a weekend pass, but he just had 2 weekend passes in a row, so chances are you won't get 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, we made prospects. Also, what made my prospects even brighter was Sergeant Flood was in charge of quarters for the weekend. Now, if I didn't get caught for any detail work on the weekend, my chances look pretty good. So basically, if you're just hanging around, they'll say you got to.
Oh, yeah, they'll grab you.
So you got to keep moving, right?
Yeah.
Stay out of their way, out of their sights. With that in mind, I suddenly realized I had to get out of the company area, especially the barracks. It was the Army's practice to pick up stragglers lying around the barracks, day room, or company area and give them various kinds of details and work weekend duty.
Yeah.
So you stay clear, right?
Yeah. Get out of there.
I slipped out the back door of the barracks and headed around the 2nd Platoon's barracks, furthest from the orderly room, and then towards the PX. It was an unwritten law of the Army that the PX and church were neutral territory, and you could not get nabbed for a detail in either place. So if you're in church or the PX, they're not going to nab you, right? That's cool. As I entered the PX, I could hear the boisterous voice of Smith. Who was Smith?
Smith was a loudmouth Texas boy.
And didn't he bring his girlfriend down?
Yeah.
From South Carolina?
Yeah.
And then behind her back, he was cheating on her?
Yeah.
What a piece of work, huh? As I entered the PX, I could hear the boisterous voice of Smith arguing with Sposta, someone from the 3rd Battalion. Sposta. How was he, a good guy?
Sposta, yeah.
Was he a good guy? Sposta.
Yeah, Italian.
Okay. That says enough. I tried to find a spot away from the commotion, but unfortunately Smith spotted me and came over to my table. He sat down and commenced to talk about Betsy and Elaine. So Betsy was his girlfriend that he brought from South Carolina.
And then had Elaine for me.
And he had Elaine, was your girlfriend that was friends of Betsy.
Yeah.
And didn't Smith one time lie to say that Betsy was having a baby this weekend, so he had to run down to South Carolina?
Yeah.
But it didn't work, I don't think, did
No.
it? No. I sat there and smiled at the opportune moment whenever he mentioned Elaine, not wishing to antagonize him any further than he was now. He had been drinking. Does he drink a lot?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But he never made it to combat, did he?
No.
So he basically was in a war, raised hell, but never made it to combat.
No.
What happened to him?
I think they checked him out.
Mental?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about spot stud? Did he make it to combat?
No, no.
What happened to him?
He got out too.
Wow. You're the only one that seems like getting all these guys that end up going. Okay, let's see. He's been drinking and all likelihood since retreat. And I knew instinctively that he would be here until closing. So he just drank all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. He kept mentioning that we should go to town this weekend and find us a couple girls and have a good time. I wonder what Betsy would think of his behavior, and I was glad I had played a very small part in discouraging her from early engagement, or worse yet, even marriage. It was strange how a person could be so different under dissimilar circumstances. Smith finally got bored with no common conversations and went back to his table. It was still too early to call Ann, and besides, the PX was getting noisy. I walked out into the fresh air, being careful to avoid the main thoroughfares where detail snatchers were cruising. So you had to be careful that the detail snatchers were cruising, that you didn't get caught.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you wouldn't have no weekend, right? I slipped into the post theater, which was almost full, and got a seat in the back, where war movies never impressed me much, and they were so unreal and over-dramatic. At 21:30, I left the theater to go back to the PX to call Ann. Luckily, the phones were not in the PX proper, but a separate annex, which was relatively quiet and reasonably private. Ann answered on a third ring, and I was thrilled to hear her voice. She's been waiting for my call every day. Naturally understood when I told her that this was the first chance I had to call her. Would you have regular rotary phones or payphones?
Yeah.
Payphones?
Payphones, yeah.
I told her about the possibility of getting another weekend pass, and she became excited at the prospect of seeing me once again. I then asked her if she had any plans for the weekend, as I had occupied most of her last 2 weekends. She instantly said that was absurd, and she looked forward to seeing me again. She reiterated that she had done nothing all week but school and work, and not even seen Mara all week except during school hours and times of work. She again mentioned that she missed me terribly and that she was lonesome without me being there with her. I then said I'd call her tomorrow night, Friday, to see how I made out and getting a weekend pass. She understood, sounded excited about seeing me again. We talked for a while longer. When I finally said goodnight, I missed you, she replied, good night, I love you. I felt disturbed that I had not said the same thing. I felt like a jerk. I felt like a jerk. The next day, Friday, was comparatively easy, and about midday I went into the orderly room to put in for my weekend pass. Sure enough, Sergeant Flood was there, and I felt relieved. He smiled and asked what brought me into the orderly room. I told him I want to sign up and get a weekend pass, and he replied, "That's impossible." He says, "I was scheduled for guard duty this weekend."
Yeah, he give him below there.
As despair shrouded my face, the only thing I could think of was to say shit. It was only when I saw Sergeant Flood's face light up into a broad grin I knew I was still in the contention for a pass. He said he thought of putting me on guard duty, but since I had done such a great job on the exercise, and decided to give me a break. Besides, he explained, Baker was the sergeant of guard, and you had enough of Baker during the exercise. We talked at great length, and he hit it again that I was on line for promotion, and shortly things would be popping around here. I thanked him for the pass, walked out into the orderly room, relieved and happy at the prospect of seeing Ann again. I began to dwell on all things we were coming this weekend. Perhaps in a good show, not a war movie, but a deeply romantic one with a bunch of well-groomed male stars. I would sit close to Ann and touch her stocking legs and hold her hand. After the movies, we'd go to a restaurant with a dance band and would hold her as we danced the night away. It was very romantic, and I look forward to it becoming a reality. That night, after we GI'd the barracks, what does GI'd the barracks mean?
Scrub the floor.
Make it really spick and span.
Yeah.
The barracks in preparation for the Saturday morning inspection, I called Ann and informed her of the good news. She was delighted and said she would meet me at the bus station. We talked a while. When we said goodbye, I told her I loved her. She sighed slightly and said she loved me and missed me a great deal.
17 minutes.
My only worry, I thought, was Smith, since I almost promised him I'd go to Evansville this weekend with him. I was hoping that he'd forgotten, but I'd soon find out. As I saw him approaching me, I left the phone booth. He told me right out that he could not get a pass for Evansville that weekend. You're lucky Smith couldn't get a pass.
Yeah.
As he got into a fight the other night, and the MPs were called, so he was probably drunk.
Yeah.
The end result, as far as he was concerned, was he was on company punishment, restricted to the company area for a month, a high price to pay for little unwise actions. I felt bad for Smith, but was greatly relieved I did not have to find some outlandish and ludicrous excuse why I could not go with him. I decided that I should start to taper off my relationships with Smith, as I did not condone most of his behavior, nor did I especially like people that associated with while in camp. He sought my friendship only when it suited his interest and wanted to impress Betsy and use me as his bearer of good tidings. The inspection went well, and after the parade, I showered and put on my neatly clean starched Class A uniform. What's a Class A uniform?
Tie and belts and everything.
Okay. All right. A formal uniform.
Yeah.
You wouldn't fight in that.
No.
No. Then I went in an orderly room for my pass, and lo and behold, at the desk was T5 Eckert. How was T5 Eckert?
Smart ass.
Smart ass?
Yeah.
He gave me a startled look and a caustic remark. Again, I did not say a word, but signed my name, took my pass, and walked out the door. So did he ever make it to the front lines?
Who?
T5 Eckert?
No, he's orderly. Yes, so he stayed right there.
And he was a smart ass on top of it.
Yeah.
As usual, the bus to Owensboro was almost empty, and the bus driver had recognized me, smiled and said, "Lucky girl, have a nice time." I settled back for a 1-hour trip into Owensboro and thought about what was happening between Ann and me. I knew Ann was serious about our relationship, and also knew she was mature and level-headed, not to get involved with anyone just because there was a war on or I was in a uniform. I was aware that she was attracted to me, and I was to her, but I did not want to get in the same situation that Smith was with Betsy. I did not believe I would react as Smith had, but I was plowing new and uncharted ground here, and I was unsure of myself. I am sure Anne was having the same thoughts of uncertainty
14.
and misgivings, and when I determined that we would spend time discussing this very subject. The bus finally pulled into the station, and I alighted. I could see Anne smiling when she walked over towards me. Suddenly all my skepticism vanished, and the sight of her. She was wearing a skirt and a jacket as she approached. I could hear a clicking of her high-heeled pumps on the pavement. She threw her arms around me and began kissing me. I don't think anything else but the warmth of her embrace and the closeness of her body to mine. A thought quickly flashed through my senses. Yes, I was in love of her and proud of it. I held her hand as we walked to the car, all the while gazing intently at her and hanging on to her every word. First of all, she said, "We'll get settled at Weatherberry's." As I drove the car, as she drove there, I sat closely behind her, savoring the fragrance of her sensuous perfume. At this moment, all my misgivings I previously harbored suddenly were no longer critical and of no importance. What was important was sitting next to me in all her beauty and grandeur. We checked into the same cozy room I previously had, and surprisingly, Anne accompanied me to the room. As she looked about the room approving, I pondered this new development. She looked radiant as well as inviting as she sat in a large rocker and gently started to rock, while at the same time swaying one of her crossed legs. I sat on the floor beside her and looked up with great admiration and reached out my hand and put on her leg and slowly rubbed it up and down. Okay. She looked down at me and smiled. She let go and then quickly got up from the rocker and headed for the door. "Wait a minute," I explained. I reached into my overnight bag and retrieved a package. As she returned to the center of her room, I handed it to her. She looked surprised, opened the package, took what was inside, and beamed delightedly. She quickly reached my side, kissed me on the cheek, and softly said, "Thank you." It was 3 pairs of nylon stockings. They were hard to get during the war.
Yeah.
Hard to get, yeah. I had bought it at the PX, and I was pleased and happy to give her something. "How'd you know my size?" she asked, fingering the nylons and holding them into the light. I remarked that she gave me her size the last time we were together, and then I remarked, almost, "You know, those nylons give me a special privilege, and then now I can touch your legs without your permission." She smiled and took my hand and we headed to the door. "Are you hungry?" Anne asked as we walked to the car. I said with certainty that I was, and I had not eaten since breakfast. It was now late afternoon. "I'll treat," she blurted, and I quickly remarked that I would not think of it. But I thought about it as we walked to the car. Money was getting tight. I was living high off the hog, so to speak, on a private first-class pay of $55 a month.
Yeah.
And almost all that she sent to your mother, right?
Yeah.
Wow, holy cow. I was sending home to my mother. It did not leave me much for entertainment. Several minutes later, we arrived at Shirley's Townhouse Restaurant, which was south on 3rd Street. As I followed Anne to our table, I could admire her figure as she walked ahead of me. Her buttocks were firm and they had a little sway to them as she walked. Anne ordered Southern-style dinner for both of us, and we waited for our meal. I told her again how much I missed her the last few days. Also, I said I had a difficult time the first few days after our first meeting. She asked why, and I said rather coyly that I had other things on my mind. She knew I was referring to her. She shuffled a bit in her seat and rearranged her crossed legs somewhat, which pulled her skirt up higher to my delight and enchantment. Do you want to read some questions now?
Oh, yeah.
All right, minutes, please. Minutes, please.
She's not here.
No one's here. Can't he get a cup of coffee? Okay. Mr. Jeckovich, when you're delivering the papers, you had a bike. What was that bike called?
Knight. Black Knight.
Yeah, made by Schwinn. A very, very collectible bike now.
But orange horn button on the side.
Yeah, big, like in the center, there's a big, like a balloon type of area, and there's a horn and there's a light.
Yeah.
And that's what you delivered your papers in, right?
Yeah.
When's the last time you rode a bike?
Well, the last time I rode a bike? Probably then.
90 years ago?
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Do you think you could ride a bike now?
No.
You don't think so? Wow. In school, have you ever been in a food fight?
Food fight?
In school?
No.
Have you ever been arrested?
No.
No. What is your favorite type of casserole your mother used to make for you?
Stuffed cabbage.
Okay. Do you watch any of the cooking shows?
The what?
Do you watch any of the cooking shows?
Cooking shows?
Yeah, on TV?
No, I used to go to that electrical place. They had a cooking school for anybody that wanted to go take part of it. So I went to that cooking school.
So you went to cooking school?
7.5.
Oh. Can you do impersonations of anyone?
No.
I thought you did impersonations of the neighbor that spoke with a bad Polish accent.
Oh, yeah.
Who was that neighbor?
That's Boleski.
And how would he talk? And what's the reason why you don't have an accent?
Well, because my father said we're going to talk English, but I could talk Russian and I could talk Polish.
And in Belinsky's house, they all talk Polish, right?
Yeah.
So as a result, they all had bad accents.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great decision that your father made. As a boy growing up, what was your hobbies?
Hobbies?
Yeah.
Woodworking, electrical work, doing stuff around the house.
What was the most shocking moment in your life?
Shocking moment?
Yeah, in your life.
When I figured out we were going to get married.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Did you have a camera when you were a boy?
Camera?
A camera.
A Polaroid camera, yeah.
Okay. Where's that camera now?
Oh, Lord knows where it's at.
I notice when we see you, Mr. Jeckovich, you're always wearing different shoes. How many pairs of shoes do you have?
2.
2? Wow. Oh. Wow. What makes you stand out in the crowd?
What makes me stand out in my crowd?
A crowd, yeah.
Tall person.
Okay. What's the oldest thing you own?
Oldest
Thing you own, yeah.
that I own?
Yeah, the oldest thing.
Probably not an accordion.
Okay. Would you like to have any inflatable furniture?
No.
Did you ever have a water bed?
No.
No, okay. Would you swim with the sharks?
No.
No.
Amber does it all the time.
Yeah, she's an avid surfer. She's always out there. Wow. Mr. Jeckovich, you've done a lot of things over the last 100 years. What is your favorite trip down memory lane?
Going to the church to get married.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Do you prefer sunrises or sunsets, Mr. Jeckovich?
Sunrise.
Sunrise?
Yeah.
How do you feel about plastic surgery?
But plastic surgery? If it's needed, do it.
Cosmetic surgery?
Cosmetic, no. That's altogether different.
Altogether different, right? Have you ever won anything in your life?
Yeah, I'm on a scooter at Cataract Theater Saturday afternoon.
Wow, what kind of scooter was that?
Scooter where you put your foot on.
Oh yeah, how long did you keep that for?
Oh, I kept it for maybe 2 or 3 years, so I
So you
wrecked
got a
it.
lot of use out of it.
Yeah.
Have you ever went camping, Mr. Jeckovich?
Camping?
3.5.
Huh?
3.5.
Yeah, have you ever went camping?
Oh yeah, we went camping.
Where'd you go camping at?
It's Bowman Lake.
Wow. And what was your camping site number?
Appetite,
Camping site number?
51.
51. And why'd you pick that one?
That was the biggest campsite.
Wow. And where was that Bowman Lake located?
Bowman Lake,
Where was it?
outside of Syracuse.
Okay. And it was a long drive from your house?
Oh, about an hour and a half.
I see. So it was a nice trip there then, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Mr. Jeckovich, do you think money is the root of all evil?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Jeckovich, did you ever need a lawyer in your life?
Yeah, I had the lawyer for the laundromat.
What happened there?
Well, I had to fight with DeLuca all the time.
Who's DeLuca?
Yeah, he was the owner of the building.
And he was a real scumball?
Yeah,
A
yeah,
real piece of garbage?
yeah.
Tell us some of the things he would do.
He says he wanted more money. He wanted more money.
More money.
He-
After you took a abandoned building and remodeled it on your dime,
yeah,
and now it looks like something, and he wants more money.
yeah.
And did he want more money for the basement too? How did that go?
The basement was a mess.
And
I put reinforcement rods up there to hold the laundromats up.
And then what did he say? He says you cost him money?
Yeah, he's gonna make a restaurant downstairs, a dump.
Minute and a half.
And it was been vacant for 30 years, no restaurant ever.
Yeah.
And was he just really a pain in the ass from the beginning to the end?
Well, yeah,
Luca.
yeah.
Wow. But was he, what type of person was he?
He's a minister.
A minister. Yeah. And how about when he used the word damn, what did he tell you?
Says, please, yes, don't use that word in vain.
Yeah. A so-called minister. Probably the biggest hypocrites in the world.
Huh?
Ministers are generally the biggest hypocrites in the world.
Yeah,
Wow. What a bad guy, huh?
yeah.
Where do you think he is now?
He's buried or disintegrated or whatever you do with him.
Minutes?
55 seconds.
So you mean to tell me you took that laundromat that was an empty shell, a deserted bottom store, and you rebuilt it your whole way, right?
Yeah, yeah. I spent $1,700 remodeling it.
And he didn't give a damn about how beautiful you turned the property?
Yeah,
He just saw more money
yeah,
that he could squeeze.
yeah.
Wow. What finally happened to the laundromat?
Well, they took it out and put the convention center in there.
So the city destroyed over 200 businesses in that area, mom and pop Italian and Polish businesses, for a convention center.
And it didn't work out.
How'd the convention center do?
That folded right away.
Complete flop.
Yeah,
Typical government. Huh?
Almost done.